Okay, today we have another installment of our Texas First series, really highlighting an important and also terrible issue that's happening here in our country and within our state. Today we're talking about human trafficking and the tragedy and travesty of what is happening to children as well as female and male sex slaves. Human trafficking is modern day sex slavery, but it's important to highlight that there are people and organizations out there actively working to dismantle this tragedy within our country. Today, we have Nick McKinley and Jeremy Mayhew, co-founders of DeliverFund, which combats human trafficking every day, but leverages technology and leverages utilizing their entire resource bank as in addition to local law enforcement to ensure that local agencies, statewide agencies, and federal agencies are all working in tandem to take down bad people. So Nick, Jeremy, welcome. Thrilled to have you here. You guys have both served on a lot of three-letter agencies. Nick, you were in the Air Force, Special Operations. You were a pararescue man. That's incredible.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, and Jeremy, you're a SEAL team sniper. I mean, and you guys, I was looking at your resumes. You've had deployments, you've had time spent with Congress members or institutions trying to combat crime. This is incredible how you guys got to this point. Can you share with us a little bit about who is DeliverFund and what is your mission?
Yes, well, thank you for helping us, highlight this really important issue. We're doing the part that we can, but without folks like you bringing attention to it, then that's a very, very important piece. So what we are at DeliverFund, we're a nonprofit counter-human trafficking organization, and we work to rescue victims of human trafficking through law enforcement by equipping, training, and advising them for the human trafficking fight. So essentially, we're the public-private partnership that helps law enforcement be able to do their job better, faster, and with greater efficacy.
Well, so on average, a child is put into sex slavery every 2.5 hours or sold every 5.4 times a day. A child is sold into some sort of sex slavery. And over 50% of these victims are children. This is a huge issue, and especially big in Dallas and Texas. Would you guys share a little bit about what's going on with Texas being the #2 state in the highest amount of trafficking and why you chose to build your organization here?
I would say that, well, first of all, thanks again for having us on here and promoting this message, and because a lot of people don't realize that we have the problem here in the United States. We think it's in Cambodia or Thailand or some other country. We don't realize that it's 80% of what's happening here is Americans trafficking Americans to Americans. And in the state of Texas, we've actually, Texas is listed as the second worst state in the country, with California and Florida on either side of that. And so North Texas also is listed as being one of the higher call-in places for human trafficking calls, like to the hotlines. So this is a real problem. And through the governor's office, University of Texas did a study, which I think might be a little bit exaggerated in proportion as they tried to extrapolate some numbers, but they had over 300,000 victims in the state of Texas, 79,000 of those being minors. And so even if it was half that, even if it was a quarter of that, like that's just unacceptable. And so this is a major problem. It's a major problem for Texas, for Texans. And, that's one of the reasons that we decided to put our headquarters right there in Dallas and the greater Fort Worth area there. And so, we're excited to be part of that solution. And Nick can talk about maybe where we moved into our office space, which is even more exciting.
Yeah, I was actually getting ready to go there. Talk to us, Nick, maybe you share with us a little bit about Backpage.com, how you guys, the evolution of discovery to where you are today and taking them down.
Sure. So one of the things that we like to focus on in the fight against human trafficking is the same thing that we learned in the fight against counterterrorism. We want to find the foundational principles for what makes the human trafficking market work, and then we want to start tearing those pieces of the market apart and really attacking the transaction. We want to disconnect the market so it just can't work. Well, the biggest piece that allows human trafficking to proliferate in the United States is technology. The same internet technologies that we all use to run our businesses or to communicate with our friends are the same technologies that human traffickers use to run their business and communicate with customers. So there used to be a website called Backpage.com, which was really that was the central clearinghouse for human trafficking victims, not just in the United States but worldwide. And it was headquartered in Dallas. And we worked with a number of law enforcement institutions to help them figure out the illegal activities that Backpage.com was participating in, and provided that intelligence. And the Texas Attorney General's office, in conjunction with other law enforcement agencies, kicked in Backpage's door and arrested their executives, and many of them are serving sentences, and some of them are still waiting on prosecution. Well, we were looking for a new headquarters space, and when we learned that Backpage was being taken down and that their headquarters space was going to be open, we thought, that would be that's a really dark place in the fight against human trafficking, and we're a really bright light, so why not go in there and take it over? And so we did.
Bravo, congratulations to both of you and local law enforcement and all of the agencies that were involved in this takedown. I think it's so interesting that so many people in Dallas don't know that the worldwide central hub was in our city for child and human trafficking. That we were oblivious to the disgust and the darkness of this whole ecosystem. And so most people don't know that. Thankfully, you guys are here, and love that you've decided to rip out the darkness and be the bright, shining light. I think, Jeremy, to your point, this is happening in American borders. Americans are taking advantage and victimizing other Americans. It's not some far away country where there are women and children enslaved in sex slavery. This is happening here in our own borders. I'm curious about demographic trends or trends that you're finding amongst victims. Can you share some of your insight about what's happening or how children or women get put into this trade, this sex trade? Jeremy?
I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump on that. So a couple things. One, I would mention also that just like with Backpage, what that actually was, is it looked like escort ads, right? And so you have this website that has these escort ads, but what we found is that they were complicit in not only human trafficking, but also complicit in selling minors for sex. And so really what that was just like Nick said, the box store for human trafficking, but it was with this like false impression of like, well, it's just an escort ad. And so, I mean, we should probably call that what it is, prostitution most of the time. But most people don't realize that a lot of these even prostitutes who maybe we even see on, Harry Hines Boulevard or something, right? This is like something that we've always thought about, like happens in the seedy part of town or the red light district on the street, and we used to be able to see it. But what's happened with technology and having a smartphone is it's changed that business so that now a human trafficker can buy and sell through advertising online, and they just connect their product, so to speak, with their consumer in a hotel room. And so nobody sees what's happening on the street anymore. So because of that technology component coming in, there's also, we talked about the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children said that between 2005 and 2010, there was an 846% increase in suspected trafficking of minors in the United States. These are like American kids, and this massive scaling up because technology allowed that business to do that. And so the demographics of it are a little bit different in different parts of the country. I would say probably in Dallas, it's predominantly African American, is the on the victim side, but every ethnicity and every probably economic status or level is subject to it. We've seen upper middle class kids be abducted. We've seen a grooming process that happens on, whether it's in schools or, I mean, we've seen it across the board, but a lot of it happens online. And that's really where we bring the fight, is to root out where it's happening, where it's being sold and advertised online, and then working backwards to see who the actual human trafficker is, so we can do what we say in the state of Texas: cut the head off the snake.
Yeah. So let's talk about your technology. I love that you guys are innovative and that you use all of your 20 years of experience in the military and all of the resources that you have within different organizations to help supplement law enforcement. But you're also leveraging technology in an innovative way with your own platform, iTac. Nick, can you give us a little bit of information about what that is and how that works? I think Jeremy gave us a little insight. Can you go a little deeper?
So the ITAC stands for the International Human Trafficking Analysis Center. And the way I want you to think about it is we're like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, only we are focused solely on human trafficking, all forms of human trafficking, and all age groups, where NCMEC is primarily focused only on children. And we exist specifically to serve all law enforcement, but we really work very closely with state and local law enforcement because they're the ones that are doing the majority of the heavy lifting in the fight against human trafficking, and the ones who really need the resources. Now, our technology platform is PATH, which stands for the Platform for the Analysis and Targeting of Human Traffickers. And that is, to date, the largest human-curated human trafficking database in existence.
Wow.
And what that means is that it's a very clean human trafficking database. So instead of having a lot of noise and a very difficult to find signal, it's a whole database of nothing but signal. So what that allows law enforcement to do, and we give licenses to law enforcement to allow them to access this. It allows a local county sheriff in Birmingham, Alabama, who has a case that connects in Kansas City, that then connects in Dallas. It allows all of those law enforcement officers at the local level, local, county, and state level, to be able to coordinate their cases so that the wheel doesn't have to be reinvented in every single jurisdiction. As that trafficker moves, if Birmingham didn't have the resources to action that trafficker, well, then maybe Oklahoma City will, or maybe Dallas will. And so we make sure that no matter where that trafficker goes, their sins follow them, and eventually they'll catch up to them.
Bravo. Bravo. I mean, it seems the internet can be so elusive. You can hide, and you can be so many different people. And I love that you're absolutely blowing that up and forcing their sins to stay with them. I love that. That's remarkable. Go ahead. Did you have something?
One of the interesting pieces for prosecutors is that all of that information from all the different places that trafficker has been provides a historical record. So not only does it provide a record of them crossing state lines, but it also provides a historical record of what they were doing it and when they were doing it, which means that the actual human trafficking conviction and prosecution doesn't have to rely solely on a victim testimony.
Yeah, I spent 6 years on the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center board, and our goal was to only have a child tell their story of abuse once. Because the more time a victim has to relive that trauma, the more challenging, the more screwed up the story can sometimes be. And so you
Right.
never want to have someone repeat that trauma, have to relive it over and over again. So, I mean, it sounds like everything, you guys have really thought through the entire supply chain and the entire ecosystem, not only how to track and put these awful monsters trafficking young women and children behind bars, but also ensuring that you're helping victims be ushered out of this entire operation. So, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about, as we have all been in our homes for the last 4 or 5 months, and we're going out now, the amount of trauma that's happened to victims during coronavirus has escalated tremendously in terms of abuse. But how do we spot victims? How do we train ourselves to be able to identify potential victims of human trafficking?
So you've got to get involved. You've got to start reading about it so you can understand it. There's certain demeanors that a victim will have that start to become easier to spot as you go along. I mean, sometimes it's a matter of there's track marks on an arm,
Okay.
and if you have a chance to talk to them and they say that they're not the ones that actually give themselves drugs, because we heard this recently from the fire department where the fire department guys went into a house and they were talking to this girl and she said, well, I'm not the one that does this. And they're like, well, that's a pretty good clue right there. But she was obviously, a heroin addict. So there's signs. Sometimes these girls, it's not always the same, but sometimes these girls or these victims are not allowed to like look at anybody in public. They have to look down at the ground. They're not really allowed to speak. And oftentimes there's some, usually male, who is the pimp trafficker, who's somewhere in the near distance and is watching everything that happens. And so there's one thing I would just say, since we're short on time, is we have a newsletter that we put out. We have some frequently asked questions that we are answering each month, and people can go on our website and look at some of the information we put out there, and we will give some of that information where people can help identify those kinds of those signs.
Well, that's perfect, because you're leading me into my last question. How do people get involved? How do people support your mission, donate to your mission? Because so much of it is you give out for free anyways, but how do people get involved?
Yeah, so DeliverFund is a 501c3, so we're a charity, and right now we rely pretty much solely on private donations. And so people can go to our website, deliverfund.org, and they can donate there. There's an email there if they want more information. It's info@deliverfund.org. We have all the different social media sites at DeliverFund, whether it's LinkedIn or anything else. We don't take a lot of volunteers because of what we do is predominantly on that technology side. But anybody that wants to help us fundraise, we usually welcome that on the volunteer side. I think people just need to really start to think about this, follow it. I think that as soon as you start to look at the problem and do some research, you start to find ways to where you can fit in and be part of the solution. Maybe it's just talking to our elected officials and trying to get, good legislation through and put pressure even on our politicians so that they actually fund some of these, because as you probably know, especially on the federal level, there's a bunch of, even on the state of Texas level, there's a lot of laws that have been passed to fight human trafficking that are just never funded. And so we need to make sure that we help get resources to the people that need it most, really is law enforcement. And then, I mean, here we are talking about defunding the police, right? And in a time where we need them more than ever, and we should be talking about upping their salary so we can get top-notch talent in that position, so that we can go after people that would otherwise be trafficking women and children. So
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
start.
Well, that's
Yep.
great. Deliverfund.org. I pledge to you two things. I will personally donate because I believe in you. I know that what you guys are doing is making a marked difference in hundreds of people's lives. And I will personally donate. I will also pledge to you that when I get to Congress, I will be your champion because it is unacceptable, it is disgusting, and it is absolutely no longer an option for Dallas to participate in, or North Texas to participate in this malicious behavior. And I pledge to you to be your champion legislatively because every child matters, every victim matters. We have to give them voices and shine a light on this absolute darkness. But thank you to both of you for doing the right work, doing the hard work, and being the warriors that provide hope.
Well,
Happy
thank you
to
for
do it.
having
Honored
us.
to do it.
Thank you for helping us shine the light.
Well, it's important. The work that you're doing is important. Everyone, please go to DeliverFund.org. You can donate. You can sign up for their very important newsletters, their FAQs. Educate yourself. Keep your eyes open and your head on a swivel. And together, we'll all take this down. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Bye.